We'll go ahead and begin in our tall seat, making yourself as comfortable as you can be. We may sit onto a blanket or a towel to help elevate the hips, releasing the knees a little and making sure the spine can stay nice and tall. And please close your eyes once you're ready to begin. And start to observe the breath, how it is right now, in this moment. Observing which half of the breath may be easier to take. If one half of the breath is longer or slower. If there's a slight catch in either half of the breath, or we don't feel like we can fully inhale or fully exhale, know that that's okay. Just observing what's going on with the breath, the body, and the mind right now. If you'd like, you're welcome to set an intention for your practice or for your day. Maybe an intention for this 5-day series if you intend to work through all 5 days. And please start to slow the breath, feeling the breath move down into the abdomen. Exhales back and up and out through the nose, finding a 3-dimensional expansion with the breath. Inhales down into upper chest, into rib cage, down into the navel. Exhales back up and out through the nose. Trying to maintain this slow, smooth breath throughout our practice. Knowing if it strays, if our mind wanders, taking our awareness back to our intention or this breath awareness to help bring you back here. Bow your head to your chest to seal in your intention. And we'll begin in a child's pose. Please take your knees about hip width or slightly wider. Arms forwards around either side of the head. Torso may rest onto the legs or maybe between the legs if we take the knees a little wider. Head can rest onto the floor if it lands, or we may rest the head onto a block, or for now, stacked hands or forearms. Feel the breath once again down into the abdomen, expanding through whole torso. Now, please extend your arms back out in front if they're not already. With your next inhale, please move the chest forwards, shoulder blades down the back, heart lifts for cow pose. As you exhale, round to cat pose. Inhale back to cow pose, lift the chest, bringing the heart forwards, keeping a little strength into the navel still. Tuck the toes, back to downward facing dog. Knees can keep a generous bend, tipping the tailbone up toward the ceiling, lengthening the spine. We can start to pedal through the feet, move through the knees, the hips, take anything that feels good. And please press back evenly through both hips and both heels again. Knees back to the floor. Inhale, heart forwards to cow pose, lift the chest. Cat pose, exhale, round the spine, hug the navel up and under. Inhale back to cow pose, lift the chest, keeping the neck neutral, chin toward the throat slightly. Child's pose, exhale, resting here for about 2 breaths. On your next inhale, heart forwards back to cow pose again, lifting through the chest, shoulders back away from the ears. Cat pose, exhale, rounding, navel draws up toward the spine. Inhale back to a cow pose, lift the chest. Tuck the toes, move back to downward facing dog. Again, we might need to keep a bend in the knees. The heels do not have to touch the floor and the legs do not have to be straight. Every exhale, find that same support and strength into the abdomen that we had in our cat pose, our rounding. And gently start to walk the feet forwards, please, coming into a forward fold at the top of your mat. On your inhale, we'll fly the hands back around the hips, lifting the chest, extension through the spine for a half lift. Exhale, navel strong, folding back to our forward fold. Same thing again, please. Inhale, heart forwards, hands back around the hips, open the chest. Forward fold, exhale. Inhale, raise the arms all the way up overhead. Hands to heart center. On your inhale, raise the arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Back to our half lift with the arms at the sides. Pull the shoulders back. Exhale, fold. Plant the hands. Step back with your right leg for runner's lunge. Here, if it's uncomfortable to take the hands to the floor, if the chest is running into the leg, we can use our blocks here. Taking our stance long enough that we can feel a stretch, maybe through the front of right hip, maybe underside of left hip, left hamstring. And as you inhale, keep the chest lifting forward, shoulder blades back, maybe making sure we're not crunching and rounding through the spine or through the neck. And from here, please release. Set the blocks off to the side. I like to roll mine just off so that they're ready when I need them next. Inhale, extend your left leg back to three-legged dog, lifting through back seam and inner seam of the leg. Toes point to the floor. Down dog, exhale, release. Inhale to a plank or a kneeling plank. Stay for one breath here. Next, exhale, hips up, back to downward facing dog. Walk the feet forwards, come back into a forward fold at the top of the mat. Inhale to a half lift. We can keep the hands to shin or knees this time, but keep the same opening through the chest. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, raise all the way up, hands overhead. Hands to heart center. Inhale, raise the arms. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Fold, plant the hands, step your left leg back into runner's lunge. Long enough stance between the feet. Again, we can take the blocks coming back in. If you are using blocks, we have 3 settings here, the lowest, next highest. The very highest tends to be a little more unstable, so please choose the one that is comfortable for you. Right knee bends forwards, left heel presses back, chest lifts. And set the blocks to the side. Hands around right foot, right leg back to three-legged dog. Down dog, release to the floor. From here, please take your knees down onto the ground, walking the hands about a handprint width more narrow and just slightly farther out in front so that the hips can release back toward the heels, but they're not going to land all the way like child's pose. Hands stay a bit forwards, create an extension through the spine, through the arms. If you'd like, we can take pinky fingers to the floor, thumbs up, helping bring a bit of external rotation into the arms. And the next time you inhale, please rebuild, coming back up onto hands and knees. Tuck the toes, back to down dog. For our next pose, we'll come into Warrior One, a slightly shorter stance than our runner's lunge, so both hips can stay comfortably pointed to the top of the mat. On your inhale, extend your left leg back to three-legged dog. Exhale, step the left foot forwards. Ground your right heel to the floor, about 45 degrees or so. Right hip stays forwards, pressing into the left foot to stand up. Raise the arms up overhead. As we breathe here, soften the shoulders away from the ears. Draw the navel back toward the spine. This might intensify if we feel something in the right hip. Inhales, lengthen and lift. Exhales, strengthen back through the abdomen. And on your exhale, please fold. Hands down around the left foot onto the floor, or we could use blocks. Start to move the hips back, guiding right hip forward still, making sure the hips aren't moving off to the side to avoid any sensation in the back of the left leg. Right hip comes forwards. Left hip continues to sit back toward the back of your mat. Folding over left leg, we can keep a slight bend in the knee or work it more towards straight. And please bend back into the left knee, set the blocks off to the side. Hands land, back heel off. Three-legged dog, left leg extends back. And release back to down dog. Other side, please. Right leg, inhale, extend back, 3 legs. Exhale, step forwards, warrior 1. Left heel grounds about 45 degrees. Raising up, right hip still moves back. Left hip slightly forwards. Exhales, draw the navel back, supporting the spine. Inhales, continue to lift and lengthen through the chest and through the arms with soft shoulders. And exhale, fold over the right leg. Hands can land to the ground or onto blocks. Right hip sits back. Left hip moves forwards, keeping the hips and the shoulders and the feet all about the same distance apart. Slowly straightening right knee as you fold over right leg for pyramid. And bend back into the right knee. Blocks can set out to the sides. Take the hands around right foot. Back heel off. Right leg back to three-legged dog. Down dog, release to the floor. We might need to lengthen our stance, walking the feet back for our plank or kneeling plank. And as you exhale, lower all the way down to the ground, coming into locust pose. Same emphasis in the shoulders and the arms that we took in the beginning in our half lift. Inhale to lift the chest away from the floor, pulling the shoulders into the back as we go. Lifting through the hands, lifting through the legs, whole back body strong, still breathing. Checking in with the neck, make sure we're not crunching forwards. Chin slightly back toward the throat for a neutral cervical spine. Release hands around the rib cage. Exhale, back to down dog. We can press up through knees or toes to get there. Walk the feet forwards. Come into a half lift at the top of your mat and either interlace the hands behind the back or grab our strap or towel, opening the chest even more. Exhaling to fold forwards over the legs. Knees can keep a little bit of a bend, helping the torso fold onto the legs instead of straightening them all the way and finding the spine curving away from the legs. Inhale back to a half lift. Release our strap or towel. Exhale, fold. Inhale to raise all the way up, hands overhead. Hands to heart center. Take the hands to the hips. Please step back with your right leg. If you need to, adjust where you are so we can stay facing our screen. Interlace the hands behind the back again or grab our strap or towel. If we interlace the hands again, take our awkward grip, opposite thumb on top. Exhales to fold, releasing the chest toward the ground. Knees can keep a slight bend, tipping the weight into your toes more than your heels. Inhale to our wide leg half lift. Release the strap and perhaps grab our block if you'd like it for our wide leg half lift. Hands can come to the block, any setting that is comfortable. Right hand stays to the block. Take left hand to left hip, starting to roll the chest open toward the front of your mat. Left shoulder over right. Left arm can extend up or stay to the left hip. Every exhale, drawing the navel in, left rib cage hugs in slightly. And release the left hand back to the block or back to the floor. Right hand to right hip, roll the chest open toward the back of your mat. Right shoulder over left shoulder. Right rib cage hugs in. If you'd like, extend right arm up to the ceiling. And release right hand back to the block or back to the floor. Setting the block to the side, we'll pivot so that the left toes start to point back toward the front of the mat. Back into runner's lunge. Step straight back to down dog, please. Bringing the knees down onto the ground, coming into a seat, setting up for butterfly pose. Butterfly will take the heels toward the hips. Soles of the feet are together. And for traditional butterfly, we'd hold on to the ankles and lift tall, working on this extension, maybe feeling through the inside of the hips. We would actually not fold, but if you are used to it, if you find it beneficial, you're welcome to. And gently releasing out. Take the knees toward one another. If you need to, make sure that as you lay back, your head is going to land somewhere on your mat. Release all the way onto your back and hug the knees into the chest. We'll take figure 4 for our last pose, placing the left footprint to the floor, crossing right ankle over the top of the left thigh, right knee away from you, staying here if this is plenty, or through the right arm, thread the right arm between the legs, holding on to left hamstring, shoulders and head release back. You may have to lean up to take that bind, but if you do, once you do have it, release shoulders and head back to the floor if we can. And release left foot and right foot back to the floor. Switching sides, left ankle over the top of the right thigh, left knee away. Bringing right knee toward right shoulder, left arm can thread between the legs, holding on to right hamstring. And release right foot and left foot back to the floor. Keeping the knees bent to the ceiling, or if you'd prefer for Shavasana, a very brief Shavasana, we can straighten the legs down the length of the mat, resting here. But if it is morning, and if your low back or your hips tend to be tight, walking the feet a little wider than the hips and letting the knees knock in could be more comfortable. Resting here, feeling every point in the body that lands into the floor. Exhales, feel the body release into your mat, into the floor. Inhales, feel the floor rise up to hold the body. Letting your practice go and allowing for complete rest, complete stillness. Returning to the intention you had set at the beginning of your practice, repeating it in the mind. How could you take this intention with you? How does this intention feel? And please walk your feet back, hug the knees to the chest. And come back up into a tall seat. We can roll to one side for a couple breaths first, or we can rock straight up into our seat. When you're ready, finding our tall seat once again. If you'd like, we can sit onto a blanket or a towel as we did in the beginning. Hands resting onto the tops of the legs, observing the breath as it is now. Maybe a little slower, maybe a little more smooth, or if our movement made our heart beat a little faster. Maybe the breath seems shorter in length, different in quality. Simply allowing yourself to be the observer, noting the effect your practice had, taking your intention with you, coming back to it whenever you'd like throughout the rest of your day. Bring the palms together at heart center, bowing your head to your chest, acknowledging your breath, your peace, and all that you are. Namaste.